Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding the clock and teleporting you to the heart of the Ottoman Empire. You're not a sultan or a soldier, though. No, your career path is a bit more hands-on. You're about to become an apprentice to one of the most multifaceted professionals of the 17th century, the barber-surgeon. And let me tell you, your first day on the job might just make you appreciate modern medicine, and maybe even your own boring desk job, a whole lot more. You might not last until lunch without feeling a little queasy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd also love to know where in the world you're drifting off. Drop a comment below, tell me your city and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see our little sleepy community spanning the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Section 1. The first thing that hits you isn't the sight, it's the smell. You're standing on a packed dirt street in Constantinople, though everyone around you calls it Istanbul. The air is a thick, layered tapestry. There's the sharp, familiar scent of wood smoke, the underlying funk of packed earth and sewage, the sweet aroma of honey and nut pastries wafting from a nearby vendor, and the almost overwhelming spice-laden breath of the Grand Bazaar a few streets over. It's loud, too. Donkeys braying, merchants shouting prices in a dozen different languages, the distant call to prayer from a mosque's minaret weaving through it all. You have to pinch yourself. You're really here. Your new life begins at a modest storefront, tucked between a coppersmith's workshop, which provides a constant, rhythmic clang, 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 and a fabric dyer's, whose vats emit a pungent, chemical smell that makes your eyes water a little. Hanging above the door of your new workplace is a sign you'll come to know intimately, a wooden pole, painted in bold, spiraling red and white stripes. This is the universal symbol of your trade. To the average person on the street, it signals a place for a shave, a haircut, and the latest gossip. But to those in the know, those stripes hint at something else, something involving bandages and, well, blood. You take a deep, shaky breath, push the heavy cloth curtain aside, and step in. The interior is dim, lit by sunlight filtering through a single, small window. Dust motes dance in the slanted beams. The room is dominated by a single, worn leather chair, the centerpiece of all operations. Along the walls are wooden shelves, cluttered with an array of bowls, pots, and jars. You can't identify most of their contents yet. A low stool sits near tea. He chair, presumably for you, the apprentice. Your master, a man named Semmel with a graying, impeccably trimmed beard and forearms thick with the muscle built from years of repetitive motion, looks up from sharpening a razor on a long leather strop. He doesn't smile, but gives you a slow, appraising nod. Good. You're here, he says, his voice a low rumble. First lesson, observation. Watch everything. Say nothing unless asked. He gestures to the stool. Sit. You perch on the edge of the stool, trying to look as attentive as possible. A customer enters, an older man with a weary face. He and Semmel exchange pleasantries, talking about the price of lamb and the city's endless, noisy construction projects. The man settles into the leather chair, and Semmel's hands, which seemed so rough and strong a moment ago, become incredibly deft and gentle. He wraps a hot, damp cloth around the man's face. The steam rises, carrying the faint scent of lavender. You watch, mesmerized, as Semmel whips the shaving soap into a thick, rich lather in a wooden bowl, applying it with a soft bristled brush in slow, circular motions. The razor, now terrifyingly sharp, glints as he holds it. He begins to shave the customer, each stroke long, smooth, and precise, the sound a soft scrape against the grain of the beard. It looks peaceful, almost meditative. For a moment, you forget about the other, more alarming tools hanging on the wall. This part of the job, at least, seems manageable, even artistic. But then your eyes drift back to those shelves. Among the innocent-looking jars of herbs and oils, you spot metal implements with ominous, specific shapes. You see a tool that looks like a pair of pliers, but with sharp, cupped ends. You see a small, handled saw. You see several flat pieces of metal of varying widths. Semmel follows your gaze as he finishes the final, delicate pass of the razor under the customer's nose. He gives a quiet, knowing grunt. "Don't worry about those yet," he murmurs, just for you to hear. "We'll get to the louder part of the job after lunch." He winks, and your stomach does a slow, uneasy flip. Historians still debate the exact moment barbers officially took on these surgical duties, but most agree it was a gradual shift, born of necessity and their unique skill set with sharp instruments. The peaceful shave, you're starting to realize, is just the quiet before the storm. Section 2. The steam from the hot towel on your face hasn't entirely dissipated before Master Semmel has finished wiping his razor clean with a cloth. The freshly shaved customer runs a satisfied hand over his smooth chin, lingering in the chair for a moment to enjoy the brief cleanliness and peace before slowly getting up and paying a few small coins. The curtain sways behind him, leaving the two of you alone in the shop for now. Semmel doesn't clean up immediately. Instead, he walks to the doorway, looks up at the red and white striped pole, and gives the weathered wood a gentle pat. "See this?" he asks, without turning around. This isn't just random paint. The red, it stands for blood. The white, for bandages. Some also say the pole itself represents the stick a patient would grip tightly to endure the pain. He turns, his gaze calm as it rests on you. In Paris or London, you might see similar poles. It's the mark of our trade. But here, in Istanbul, it means a little more. He walks back inside and starts rearranging the bottles and jars on the shelves, his voice, low and suited for storytelling, continuing. People don't come here just to shorten their beards or trim their hair. They come here to talk, to hear news, to find out what's new in the neighborhood. He points to the empty leather chair. That chair has heard whispers from the Sultan's court and complaints from dock workers about low pay. A barber must know when to speak and when to clamp shut like a muscle. If your tongue is too loose, you won't last long on this street. You nod, understanding only partially, your eyes drifting back almost involuntarily to the non-barbering metal tools. Semel notices your gaze and lets out a grunt that isn't quite a laugh. Curious about those? You'll get familiar with them soon enough. But first, you must learn how to make a man trust you enough to put his most vulnerable neck under your blade. That is the foundation of everything. As if on cue, the curtain is pushed aside again. This time, it's not one person, but several. An older merchant needs a shave, a young apprentice wants a haircut, and a worried-looking mother is there with a little boy, tears in his eyes, his hand clamped over his cheek. The shop instantly becomes lively. Semel, like a conductor, calmly manages the order. He gestures for the merchant to take the chair first, directing the young apprentice and the mother and child to a bench against the wall. As he ties the cloth around the merchant, he chats easily with the waiting guests. He asks the young apprentice which craftsman he studies under, and asks the mother how many days the child's tooth has been hurting. He even mentions the new spices brought by a recent caravan from Egypt, to which the merchant adds some news about rising tariffs on Venetian ships. Information is exchanged and flows effortlessly here. You suddenly understand that this is more than a place of service, it's a social hub, a clearinghouse for information. The air is thick, not just with the scent of soap and herbs, but with something intangible, trust. People trust Semel's skill, they trust his identity as a well-informed man, and they even trust him to handle their minor physical troubles. Historians often debate the nature of the public sphere in the Ottoman Empire, but few get to feel as keenly as you do now that the heart of a community's public sphere might just be a small barber shop like this, marked by a red and white pole. The little boy with the toothache looks fearfully at the tools NEA. Are Semel's hand, his mother comforting him in a low voice, while Semel shoots them a reassuring look, never pausing or faltering in his shaving of the merchant. Everything feels so mundane, yet so vital. Sitting on your little stool, you realize you will be learning far more than just the skills of using a razor and tooth-drawing forceps. Section 3. The last customer for the morning, the merchant, leaves with a spring in his step, his cheek smooth and smelling faintly of lavender. The young apprentice with his newly trimmed hair and the mother with her relieved, no longer crying son have also departed, the space they occupied now filled only with dust motes dancing in the sunbeam from the window. The brief quiet returns. Semel turns to you, his expression unreadable. Now, he says, his voice low. The real tools. He leads you to a heavy, iron-bound wooden chest tucked away in the corner, a place you hadn't even noticed before. He produces a small key from a chain around his neck, unlocks it, and lifts the lid with a soft creak. The interior is lined with faded velvet, and nestled within are the instruments you had been stealing glances at all morning. They lie there, clean and gleaming with a recent polish, yet they possess an undeniable, silent menace. Every tool has a name and a purpose. Semel begins, his tone becoming that of a lecturer. He doesn't pick them up yet, merely points. You've seen the razor. That is for the fine work, for the surface. His calloused finger moves. These, he indicates the pair of implements that looked like pliers to you, one with sharp, cupped ends and the other with broader, flatter grips, are the key to many of our deeper services. The one with the cups is for pulling teeth. A firm grip is essential. A shattered root left behind means pain, swelling, and an angry customer who will tell everyone in the market about your failure. He moves on. That one, with the flatter ends, is for extracting arrowheads or digging for a bullet. Not a common task here in the city centre, thank God, but near the barracks, or for guards who have had a bee. It of bad luck, it is a necessary skill. You swallow hard, imagining the scene. Next, he points to a small, wicked-looking saw with a finely serrated blade. For amputations. A last resort. You must be swift and decisive. A slow cut is a torture, not a surgery. The matter-of-fact way he says this sends a chill down your spine, despite the warmth of the room. Then he gestures to a set of thin, flat metal pieces of varying widths, their edges looking surprisingly dull. These are not for cutting. These are for probing. When a wound is deep or a fistula needs tracing, you use these to feel your way. Your eyes cannot always see the problem, but your fingers, guided by this steel, can learn the truth of it. It strikes you that this is perhaps the most intimate and delicate of all the violent-looking tools. Finally, he points to a collection of ornate, hollowed-out horns and a few glass cups. For bleeding. You'll see me use them soon enough. The theory is simple. Bad humors in the blood cause illness. Releasing the blood releases the humors. He pauses, and for the first time, you detect a flicker of something uncertain in his eyes. It works, often enough. For certain fevers, for a feeling of fullness in the head. Patients often feel relieved afterward. But, he adds, his voice dropping, historians and physicians are still debating the true efficacy of the practice. Some say it is the belief that cures, not the bleeding itself. My job is not to debate the great physicians of old. My job is to perform the service people expect, and to do it cleanly. He closes the lid of the chest and locks it, the soft click sounding final. These tools are an extension of your will. They must be kept sharper than your razor, cleaner than your drinking cup. Respite. CT them. Fear them, a little. That fear will keep your hand steady and your mind focused when a man is screaming in your chair. He looks at you, his gaze intense. Tomorrow, you will begin cleaning and sharpening them. You will learn their weight, their balance. For now, just remember their names and their purposes. They are your new companions, for better or worse. Section 4. The morning bleeds into afternoon, the angle of the sunlight through the single window shifting across the packed earth floor. The initial theory lesson on the tools is over. Now, it's time for practice. Semel brings out a block of soft pine wood and a slightly blunted, old razor. Your hands must learn the motions before they ever touch human skin, he states, placing the wood and the razor in front of you on a low table. The grip is everything. Too tight, and your hand cramps, your control is rigid. Too loose, and the blade will slip, and we both know what that means. He demonstrates, his large hand cradling the razor with a surprising delicacy. You don't choke it. You guide it. Your first attempts are clumsy. The blade scrapes and catches in the wood grain, creating jagged grooves instead of the smooth, sweeping shavings Semel produces. He watches you, arms crossed, offering quiet corrections. Your wrist, not your elbow. Imagine you are painting a line, not chopping wood. The repetitive motion is strangely meditative, the scritch-scratch of metal on wood becoming a monotonous rhythm. You're not shaving a face, you're training your muscles, building the muscle memory that will one day, hopefully, prevent you from slicing a customer's throat. It's boring, profoundly so, but you feel the importance of this foundational boredom in your bones. After what feels like an hour of sawing at the poor block of wood, a new customer enters. He's a burly man with a thick, coarse beard and the weary posture of a porter. He nods at Semel and settles into the leather chair with a sigh. Semel prepares the hot towel and the lather, but then he does something unexpected. He turns to you. You will lather him. Your heart jumps into your throat. The wooden block was one thing. This is a living, breathing person who will definitely complain if you do it wrong. You take the brush, your hand trembling slightly, and try to mimic Semel's graceful, circular motions. The lather, which seemed so easy when he did it, is either too dry and pasty or too wet and runny. You get some on the man's tunic. He opens one eye and gives you a look that is more amused than angry. New one, eh? He grumbles, but closes his eye again, accepting his fate. Semel says nothing, just watches. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of your fumbling, Semel takes over. With a few expert flicks of his wrist, he corrects your messy lather into a perfect, rich cloud. Then he begins to shave the man. You watch, mesmerized, as the details you missed in your nervousness become clear. The way he uses his free hand to stretch the skin taut over the jawline. The specific angle he holds the blade against the grain on the neck, different from the angle on the cheeks. The way he uses short, precise strokes around the lips and nostrils. It's a symphony of minute adjustments, all performed with a relaxed, effortless grace. The porter, who seemed so intimidating moments before, is now almost asleep in the chair, the gentle scraping and the warmth of the towel lulling him into a trance. This is the core of it, you realize. This trust. This intimate act of placing a sharp edge against one's throat in total surrender. It's a contract. The barber provides skill and safety, the customer provides stillness and trust. Everything else, the tooth pulling, the bloodletting, is an extension of this fundamental contract. Historians can list the services offered by a barber-surgeon, but they can't truly capture the weight of this silent, daily negotiation of trust that happens in 1,000 barbershops across the empire. As Semmel finishes with a final, clean pass and wipes the man's face, the porter opens his eyes, touches his smooth skin, and gives a grunt of approval. It's a small sound, but in this context, it feels like a standing ovation. You have a very, very long way to go. Section 5. The rhythm of the shop lulls you into a false sense of routine. Shaves, haircuts, the endless sharpening of tools, the quiet gossip. You're starting to get the hang of the lather, your hands are a little steadier on the practice block. Then, a new kind of customer arrives. He's pale, his skin clammy, and he complains of a throbbing headache and a feeling of fullness, as if his head were an overfilled water skin. He speaks in a low, miserable tone to Semmel. You catch the words, the fever and the ache in my joints. Semmel nods, his expression neutral. The humors are unbalanced, he says, as if stating a simple, obvious fact. An excess of blood. We will bring you relief. He turns to you. Prepare the cups. Your mind goes blank for a second before your training kicks in. The ornate horns and glass cups from the dreaded chest. You fetch them, your hand slightly unsteady. Semmel has the man sit upright in the chair and roll up his sleeve, baring his arm. He takes a small, incredibly sharp lancet from a sterile cloth. Watch closely, he instructs you. A quick, clean cut. Just enough to let the bad blood flow. The goal is relief, not weakness. In one fluid motion, he nicks a vein on the man's forearm. A dark bead of blood wells up instantly. Then, Semmel takes one of the glass cups. He holds a small flame inside it for a moment, heating the air, before swiftly placing it over the cut. As the air within cools, it creates a vacuum, and the skin beneath the cup bulges up, purple and tight. The blood begins to flow more freely into the cup, a dark, sluggish stream. The patient lets out a long, shuddering sigh, his body slumping in the chair. You see? Semmel murmurs to you. The pressure is already easing. He uses a few more cup. S on the man's back, following invisible pathways that he says trace the flow of the humors. The whole process is methodical, almost ritualistic. There's a quiet intensity to it, a far cry from the casual chatter of a simple shave. The patient, who was tense with pain, gradually relaxes, his breathing deepening. He truly seems to feel better, whether from the actual procedure or the powerful belief in it, you cannot tell. This is the theory you'd only heard about, the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. An imbalance causes disease. Too much blood? You remove some. It has a brutal, simplistic logic to it. Semmel explains it as he works, his voice a low, calming drone. The great Galen described this. It is the foundation of all medicine. But then, almost as an afterthought, he adds, though I have seen men with the same symptoms respond well, and others not at all. The body is a mysterious thing. Scholars in Baghdad and Salerno still debate the finer points, whether the quality of the blood matters more than the quantity. This admission of uncertainty, nestled within his confident practice, is startling. After what seems like a long time, he removes the cups. The sites are marked with dark, circular bruises. He cleans the cuts, applies a simple herbal poultice to prevent air from poisoning the wound, and bandages the man's arm. The patient, though pale, thanks Semmel profusely, his headache apparently gone. He pays and leaves, moving slower but with less obvious discomfort. Semmel cleans the cups in silence. He looks at you, reading the mix of fascination and unease on your face. It is not a cure for everything, he says plainly. But it is what we know. It is what people expect. And when it works, it brings peace. That is our duty. To provide relief by any means our knowledge and tools allow. You look at the smudge of dark blood on the cloth, a stark reminder that your apprenticeship has just crossed a significant threshold. You are no longer just learning to groom, you are learning to intervene, guided by a logic that is both ancient and, in this very room, undeniably present. Section 6. The memory of the bloodletting is still fresh in your mind, the coppery scent lingering in your imagination more than in the air. The shop has returned to its usual pace for a while, the mundane snip-snip of scissors and the soft scrape of the razor a comforting normality. But the reprieve is short-lived. A new sound enters the shop, a high-pitched, panicked whimpering. A young man, barely older than you, is half dragged in by a friend. His face is swollen grotesquely on one side, his eye squeezed nearly shut, and he clutches his jaw with both hands. Tears of pure agony stream down his cheeks. He can't form words, only guttural moans. Tooth, his friend says succinctly, his own face pale with sympathy. It's been days. He can't eat, can't sleep. Semmel's demeanor changes instantly. The calm, meditative barber vanishes, replaced by a figure of swift, grim resolution. He nods, his face set. Hold him, he instructs you and the friend. There's no time for theory, no gentle explanation of humors. This is pure, urgent mechanics. You move to the boy's left side, his friend to the right. You grip his shoulders, feeling the tremors of pain and fear racking his body. He's surprisingly strong in his panic. Semmel is already at the chest, retrieving the dreaded tooth key, the instrument with the sharp, cupped end. He doesn't bother with preliminaries. Open your mouth, he commands, his voice leaving no room for argument. The boy just moans, shaking his head, his body tensing like a drawn bowstring. Semmel acts. With one hand, he forces the boy's jaw open. You see the culprit immediately, a large molar at the back, dark and rotten, the surrounding gum red and angry. The smell of decay is faint but unmistakable. Semmel positions the claw O. F the key over the tooth. Hold him tight. He barks. The next few seconds are a blur of violent motion and sound. Semel twists his wrist. There's a sickening, grinding crack that seems to vibrate through the boy's entire skull and into your own hands. The boy screams, a raw, animal sound of pure torment, his body bucking against your combined strength. You feel the strain in your arms, your own heart hammering against your ribs. Semel twists again, harder this time, leveraging the tool against the jawbone. With a final, wet, tearing sound, the tooth comes free, a bloody, ugly root dangling from the key's claw. The scream cuts off abruptly, replaced by ragged, sobbing breaths. The boy slumps in the chair, spent, the immediate, blinding agony seemingly gone, replaced by a throbbing, raw ache. Semel, breathing heavily himself, quickly stuffs a wad of linen into the gaping, bloody socket. Bite down, he orders, his voice returning to its normal timbre. The boy obeys, his eyes wide and shocked. The whole operation, from the moment they entered to the moment the tooth was out, took less than 2 minutes. It was brutal, efficient, and utterly terrifying. There was no finesse, no gentle guidance. It was a small, brutal war against a localized source of agony, won through sheer, forceful application of leverage. Historians can describe the tool and the technique, but they cannot convey the visceral, shocking reality of the sound, the smell, and the feel of another human suffering transmitted directly through your own hands. As the boy's friend helps his dazed companion out, leaving a few coins on the shelf, you look at the bloody tooth key in Semel's hand. The red on the white stripe of the pole outside suddenly seems much less symbolic and much more literal. Section 7. The sharp, metallic scent of blood from the tooth extraction still hangs faintly in the air, a ghost in the quiet shop. Your hands feel strangely empty after the intense effort of restraining the young man, a slight tremor remaining in your fingers. Semel cleans the tooth key with a methodical, almost reverent care, the water in the basin tinged pink. He doesn't speak of the procedure, offering no commentary or consolation. It was a job that needed doing. It is done. The next customer provides a stark contrast. He's a carpenter, his hands rough and calloused, one of them wrapped in a dirty, blood-soaked rag. He unwraps it to reveal a deep, jagged gash across his palm, still oozing sluggishly. It's not the dramatic, screaming agony of the toothache, but a quieter, more insidious injury. Slipped with a chisel, the man mutters, his face tight with a dull, throbbing pain. Semel examines the wound, his touch surprisingly gentle. It needs to be cleaned and stitched, or it will fester, he states. The man nods, resigned. This is another common expectation of the barber-surgeon. You are tasked with fetching the cleaning supplies. Semel doesn't use plain water. He has you bring a jar of sharp-smelling vinegar and another containing a thick, dark wine. The vinegar cuts the greasy filth from his hands, Semel explains as he pours the liquid directly over the gash. The carpenter hisses through his teeth, his knuckles turning white as he grips the arm of the chair. The wine, well, it has a spirit. It helps drive out the bad air that causes rot. This is the understanding of infection, not germs, but bad air or miasma. The logic is sensory. If something smells foul, it causes disease. Therefore, applying something strong-smelling, like wine, must counteract it. After the wound is rinsed, Semmel doesn't stop there. He takes a small, porous pouch filled with a dried, crushed herb. You recognize the pungent, earthy smell of yarrow, and sprinkles the powder directly into the cut. To help the flesh knit and to dry the wound, he says. Then comes the most surprising part. From a different jar, he takes a glob of dark, sticky substance that smells of honey and resin. A salve, he says, applying it thickly over and around the wound before finally bandaging it. It seals out the air and keeps the flesh moist. It's a chaotic, multi-layered approach. An astringent wash, a herbal antiseptic, though he wouldn't call it that, and an occlusive dressing, all based on centuries of trial and error, tradition, and the prevailing medical theories. It's not scientific, but it is a system. And you realize, watching him work, that many of these methods do have practical value. Vinegar's acidity can inhibit some bacterial growth. Yarrow has known hemostatic and anti-inflammatory properties. Honey is a natural antibacterial agent. They stumbled upon efficacy through tradition, not through understanding the mechanism. As Semmel finishes tying the bandage, he gives the carpenter the same instructions he gave the bloodletting patient: keep it clean. Come back in 2 days so I can check for any foul humors. The concept of clean here is relative, but the intention is clear. After the man leaves, Semmel looks at you. You will see many wounds. Some will heal cleanly, like this one will, God willing. Others will not. The flesh will turn green and black, the smell will be terrible, and the fever will take them. He says this not to frighten you, but as a simple statement of fact. We do what we can with the knowledge we have. Why some heal and others die is a mystery the great physicians in the madrasas are still arguing over. Some say it is the will of God, others the alignment of the stars, others the particular corruption of the individual's humors. He shrugs, a gesture of profound and ancient resignation. Our duty is to try. Section 8. Semmel sends you on an errand later that afternoon to deliver a prepared poultice to a merchant's house a few streets over. The task is simple, a welcome respite from the intensity of the shop. But on your way back, cutting through the bustling main square of the Grand Bazaar, your focus on returning is shattered by a commotion near one of the fountains. A crowd has gathered, their attention fixed on a man standing on a small, makeshift crate. He is not like Semmel. He is flamboyant, dressed in brightly colored, slightly shabby silks, his voice a booming, theatrical instrument that cuts through the market's din. Spread on a rug before him is an array of tools, some familiar, like forceps, and others utterly bizarre, strange amulets, vials of brightly colored liquids, and even what looks like a set of wooden false teeth. Come one, come all, he bellows, holding up a fearsome-looking pair of pliers. Are you plagued by the demon of toothache? Does it gnaw at your jaw, steal your sleep, rob you of the joy of a good meal? Fear no more. He gestures dramatically to his tools. I, the renowned Hakim Farouk, possess the secret of the painless extraction. A secret known only to the wise men of the East. One touch of my special tincture, he holds up a blue vial, and the pain vanishes. Puff! Like magic. You stop, mesmerized and horrified. A man from the crowd, likely a plant, steps forward, clutching his jaw. The Hakim makes a great show of applying the blue liquid with a feather. The man feigns a look of ecstatic relief. It's gone. The pain is gone. He shouts. The crowd murmurs, intrigued. Then, with a flourish, the street dentist produces his tool, and with a movement so fast it's a blur, he pretends to pull a tooth, holding up a yell. Old molar that was almost certainly palmed in his hand the whole time. The crowd gasps and applauds. Coins clink into a bowl his assistant passes around. This is a world away from Semmel's quiet, grim competence. This is pure theatre, a circus of pain relief. There is no quiet trust here, only the exploitation of desperate hope. You watch as a genuine, elderly man, his face etched with real suffering, steps forward, drawn by the promise of a painless solution. You want to shout, to warn him, but you are just an apprentice, invisible in the crowd. You see the Hakim's eyes, calculating and sharp, sizing up his new mark. The techniques, you realize, are as varied as the practitioners themselves. Semmel represents one tradition, grounded, community-based, and brutally honest in its limitations, even if its methods are based on flawed theories. This street performer represents another, nomadic, opportunistic, and built entirely on illusion and the selling of false hope. Historians often group them all under the label barber-surgeon, but the gulf between Semmel's shop and this man's rug is vast. Scholars still debate the relative prevalence and social impact of these itinerant healers versus the established, street-side barbers. Some argue they provided a necessary service for the mobile and the destitute, others contend they were little more than parasites preying on the vulnerable. You hurry back to the shop, the image of the old man's hopeful face seared into your mind. When you tell Semmel what you saw, he just snorts, a sound of deep contempt. Charlatans, he mutters, sharpening his razor with aggressive strokes. They give the rest of us a bad name. Their painless cures often lead to broken jaws and infections that even I cannot fix. He looks tu, his gaze serious. Remember this, there is no magic. There is only skill, clean tools, and the strength to do what is necessary. The pain is part of the process. Anyone who says otherwise is selling you a lie. The quiet integrity of the shop, with its blood-stained floor and well-worn tools, suddenly feels like a sanctuary. Section 9. The quiet sanctuary of Semmel's shop is breached the next day by a different kind of tension. A man arrives, dressed in the fine, clean linen of a scholar or a wealthy merchant's assistant. He carries himself with an air of detached authority, his gaze sweeping over the shop with a subtle hint of disapproval. He doesn't need a shave or a haircut. He is here to observe. Semmel's posture stiffens almost imperceptibly. He gives the man a curt nod. Aga, he says, a title of respect that doesn't quite mask the chill in his voice. The man merely nods back, folding his hands into his sleeves. He stands near the doorway, a silent, critical presence, as Semmel attends to a customer with a minor scalp wound. You feel the change in the atmosphere immediately. The usual, easy gossip is absent. The customer himself seems nervous under the man's gaze. Semmel's movements are just as precise, but they are tighter, more economical, devoid of their usual quiet flourish. Later, after the customer has left and the scholar has departed with a final, non-committal glance, Semmel lets out a long, slow breath. Physicians, he says, the word tasting sour in his mouth. From the court, or the medical madrasas. They think because they have read Galen and Avicenna in Arabic, they understand the body better than we who work on it with our hands every day. He explains the divide as he cleans up. The hekims, the learned physicians, they diagnose. They feel pulses, they examine urine in glass flasks, they debate complex theories of humours and essences. They prescribe elaborate concoctions of rare herbs and regulated diets. But the actual manual labour, the cutting, the bleeding, the stitching, that is considered beneath them. That is the work of the Berber, the barber, the craftsman. They see us as butchers, Semmel says, a rare edge of bitterness in his voice. They call our work mechanical. They say we act without true understanding. He holds up his razor. But I ask you, when a man is bleeding out from a cut artery, does he need a philosophical debate on the four humours, or does he need a steady hand to tie it off? When a tooth is rotten, does he need a treatise on dental theory, or does he need the tooth gone? This is the silent, class-based war waged in the alleys of medicine. The physicians of the mind versus the surgeons of the hand. The former had prestige and theoretical knowledge, the latter had practical, often life-saving, skills. Historians are still piecing together the complex dynamics of this relationship in the Ottoman world. While in Europe, the separation between physicians and barber-surgeons was formally legislated, here the lines were more fluid, yet the social prejudice was just as real. Semmel looks at you, his frustration fading into a grim pride. We are the ones they call when their theories fail. When a poultice doesn't draw out the infection, they bring the patient to us to lance it. When a bone is broken, they come to us to set it. They may look down on us, but they cannot do without us. He taps his temple. They have the knowledge of the books. Then he holds up his strong, scarred hands. But we have the knowledge of the flesh. And in the end, when the body is broken, it is the knowledge of the flesh that mends it. The encounter has left a shadow, but it has also solidified something in the shop's identity. You are not a hekim. You are a craftsman of the human body, and there is a raw, undeniable dignity in that. Section 10. The memory of the physician's disdainful visit fades, replaced by the tangible, immediate needs of the body. A few days later, a cry from the street outside the shop draws your attention. Two men are half carrying a third, a builder by the look of his dust-caked clothes. His face is a mask of pale agony, and his left forearm hangs at a sickening, unnatural angle, the bone clearly visible beneath the skin where it has broken through. It's a compound fracture, a sight that makes your own stomach lurch. They bring him into the shop, the man groaning with every step. Semmel's demeanor is once again all business, the previous philosophical frustrations forgotten. The bone must be set. Now, he says, his voice calm but firm. He directs you and the two helpers. You hold his shoulders. You two, on his arm. Above and below the break. You must pull, straight and strong, when I say. Do not let go. The man is laid on the floor, the only solid surface. You kneel, placing your weight on his shoulders, feeling the tremors of pain and fear racking his body. The other two men take positions on his arm, their faces set with grim determination. Semmel kneels by the break, his hands hovering over the grotesque sight. He feels the edges of the bone with his fingers, his touch surprisingly light and diagnostic. The bone is clean, he mutters, more to himself than anyone. Good. No splinters. He then looks up at the three of you. Now. Pull. You pull. The men on the arm pull with all their might, their muscles straining. The builder screams, a raw, guttural sound that echoes in the small shop. His body arches against your hold. You can feel the grinding of the bone fragments through his body, a sensation you know you will never forget. Semmel's hand. Work quickly, manipulating the broken ends, guiding them back into alignment under the stretched skin. His face is a mask of intense concentration, his eyes fixed on his work. It's a brutal, physical struggle, a battle against the body's own trauma. After what feels like an eternity, but is likely only a minute, Semmel barks, "Hold there." He quickly feels the arm again, running his fingers along the newly straightened line. He gives a satisfied grunt. Good. It is straight. He doesn't stop there. While you and the others maintain the traction, he has you fetch the splinting materials, two flat, sanded pieces of wood and a pile of long, linen strips. With practiced efficiency, he places the wooden splints on either side of the arm and begins wrapping the bandages tightly, binding the arm firmly to immobilize it. The whole process, from the scream-filled reduction to the final knot on the bandage, is shockingly fast and efficient. It's a testament to a skill born of pure, repeated necessity. Once the arm is secured in a sling, the builder's screams subside into whimpers, then into exhausted, shallow breaths. The worst is over. The pain is now a deep, manageable throb instead of a blinding white fire. Semmel gives him instructions in a low, steady voice. Do not move it. Keep it clean. Come back in 1 week so I can check the healing. The man is helped to his feet, dazed and grateful, his friends thanking Semel profusely. As they leave, Semel washes his hands, looking at the spot on the floor where the man had lain. Bones are simpler than humors, he says, almost philosophically. They either line up or they do not. The body knows how to heal them if we just give them a chance and hold them still. He looks at you. This you can learn. S is a good skill. It mends a man, lets him work again. In a world of uncertain theories and debated philosophies, the simple, mechanical act of setting a bone feels like a profound and solid truth. Section 11. The shop is closed. The last customer, a man with a neatly set and splinted finger, departed as the evening call to prayer echoed through the city. The red and white pole has been taken inside for the night. You've swept the floor, scrubbed the basins, and laid out the clean cloths for tomorrow. You think your day is over, but Semel gestures for you to join him at the back of the shop, where a small brazier glows with a low heat. It is time you learned where the true craft lies, he says, his voice soft in the quiet dimness. Not just in the cutting or the pulling, but in the making. Laid out on a low table are his mortar and pestle, several small clay pots, and an array of dried herbs, roots, and jars of viscous liquids. This is his apothecary, the source of the salves and poultices you've seen him use. He begins with the honey salve he used on the carpenter's hand. He shows you how to gently warm the thick, golden honey in a small copper pot over the brazier. It must be warm, not hot. Too much heat kills its spirit. Then he takes a lump of dark, fragrant myrrh resin and has you grind it into a fine powder with the pestle. The air fills with a sharp, clean, almost medicinal scent. He adds the powder to the warm honey, stirring slowly and deliberately. Next comes a pinch of powdered turmeric for its color and, he says, its drying nature. The mixture transforms into a thick, dark, sticky unguent. This, he says, letting you dip a finger in to feel its consistency, will keep a wound sweet. It keeps the bad air out and helps the flesh heal from the edges. It's a practical recipe, passed from master to apprentice, its efficacy proven by generations of healed wounds, even if the why remains a mystery scholars still ponder. 0.5 Next, he shows you a simpler poultice for drawing out infection. He takes dried yarrow flowers and comfrey root as you crush them together and then mixes them with a little hot water to form a green, pungent paste. For boils, for deep splinters, for when the flesh feels hot and angry beneath the skin, he explains. It draws the corrupt matter to the surface. The process is slow, methodical, and deeply sensory. You are learning the textures, the smells, the colors of healing. This is the other half of the barber-surgeon's art, not the violent intervention, but the gentle, ongoing encouragement of the body's own processes. It lacks the drama of an amputation or a tooth extraction, but it is, in its own way, just as vital. Many of the common ailments people bring to the shop are treated not with steel, but with these prepared concoctions. As you help him transfer the cooled honey salve into a clean jar, Semel speaks quietly. The great physicians, they write their books. They have their complex theories. And that is well. But this, he taps the jar now filled with the dark salve, this is what truly mends people. This knowledge is in our hands, not in our scrolls. He is not boasting, merely stating what he sees as a simple fact. The quiet pride of a craftsman who knows his materials. The light from the brazier flickers, casting long shadows of the mortar and pestle against the wall, tools of creation to complement the tools of intervention. Your education is becoming whole. Section 12. The night is deep and the city outside is mostly silent, a stark contrast to the usual daytime cacophony. You are sleeping on a simple pallet in the back room of the shop, the day's scents of herbs, soap, and a faint, lingering trace of blood woven into your dreams. A sound pierces through your sleep, not the call to prayer, but a frantic, insistent pounding on the shop's heavy wooden door. You jolt awake. You hear Semmel moving in the adjacent room, his low voice grumbling, then the sound of the bolt being drawn back. Muffled, panicked voices spill in from the street. A moment later, Semmel is at your doorway, his face illuminated by the single oil lamp he carries. His expression is grave, all traces of sleep gone. Get up. Light the other lamps. Now. There is no time for questions. You scramble to do as you're told, your hands fumbling with the tinderbox, finally getting the wicks lit. The lamplight reveals a scene of hushed urgency. Two men you don't recognize are carrying a third, a woman, her face pale and beaded with sweat, into the shop. They lay her gently on the floor, on the very spot where the builder with the broken arm had lain. She is moaning, her hands clutching her lower abdomen, her body curled tightly in a fetal position. This is beyond a simple poultice or a bleeding, one of the men whispers to Semmel, his voice tight with fear. The midwife, she said there is nothing more she can do. The pain will not cease. She said it might be a growth. The word hangs in the air, heavy and terrifying. Semmel kneels beside the woman. His usual confident demeanor is tempered now by a profound and visible caution. He does not reach for his chest of tools. Instead, he asks the woman gentle questions, but she is too far gone in her pain to answer coherently. He feels her forehead, it is burning with fever. He gently palpates her abdomen, and she cries out, a sharp, piercing sound that makes you flinch. You stand by, holding a lamp aloft, feeling utterly useless. This is not a broken bone that can be pulled straight. This is not a rotten tooth that can be wrenched free. This is a deep, internal, mysterious agony. You watch Semmel's face, and for the first time, you see something beyond competence or grim determination. You see the outer edges of his knowledge, a stark boundary he cannot cross. He knows the humors are grievously unbalanced, the body is raging with a fire he cannot see and does not understand. He sends you to prepare a febrifuge, a fever reducer, from what he has willow bark steeped in hot water. You do so quickly, your hands shaking. He helps the woman sip a little of the bitter liquid. He prepares a cold compress for her head. He does what he can. But it is painfully, obviously inadequate. This is the limit. This is the wall that all the barber-surgeons of the empire, for all their practical skill, eventually hit. The internal landscape of the body is a terra incognita, and its deepest rebellions are beyond their reach. The men eventually carry the woman away, back into the night, her fate uncertain. Semmel stands for a long time after they have gone, staring at the empty space on the floor. He says nothing. The silence in the shop is heavier than any you have felt before. The red and white pole, leaning against the wall, seems to symbolize not just blood and bandages, but the profound and humbling line between what can be mended and what cannot. Section 13. The silence left by the woman's departure lingers in the shop like a chill. Dawn is still hours away. Semmel finally moves, blowing out the extra lamps you had lit, leaving only the single, soft glow of the one he carries. He doesn't go back to bed. Instead, he sits on his low stool, the weight of the night's events bowing his shoulders. "You saw," he says, his voice a low rumble in the near darkness. It isn't a question. You saw the limit. He looks at you, his face etched with a fatigue that has little to do with lost sleep. We can set a bone. We can drain a boil. We can pull a tooth. But the deep sicknesses, the fevers that cook a man from the inside, the growths that consume the organs, for these we have little but prayers and hope. He gestures vaguely towards the part of the city where the grand mosques and medical madrasas are. The physicians, with all their learning, they have little more. They have more complex theories, more expensive remedies. But against a raging fever in the belly, their success is no greater than ours. This admission is not made with bitterness, but with a weary, ancient resignation. It is the shared, humbling reality of all healers in this age. This is the balance sheet of your trade, the unspoken ledger that every barber-surgeon must keep. The successes, the cleanly healed wound, the relieved toothache, the perfectly set arm, are victories. They are what you are paid for, what builds your reputation. But the failures, the patients who slip away into a feverish delirium or succumb to a hidden internal catastrophe, these are the shadows that follow you. They are not spoken of loudly, but they are remembered. They are the reason for the quiet moments, the sharpening of tools to a painful sharpness. The endless quest for a better poultice. It is a fight against the inevitable, and you do not always win. Historians can count the tools and list the procedures, but they can never truly quantify this weight, the psychological toll of practicing medicine at the very edge of understanding. Semmel sits in the dim light, a craftsman confronted once again with the fundamental mystery of the body he works on. The night's failure is not a personal one, but a collective one, a marker of the limits of an entire era's medical knowledge. He finally looks up at you. "Do not forget this night," he says. "Remember her. It will keep you humble. It will remind you that our craft, for all its usefulness, is a small light against a very large darkness." The first hint of dawn begins to tinge the sky outside the window, but the shop remains wrapped in the quiet solemnity of the night's lesson. Section 14. The memory of the late-night emergency fades, not forgotten, but folded into the fabric of your daily routine. Weeks have bled into months. The splinters, the shaves, the occasional tooth extraction, they have become your new normal. Your hands no longer tremble when you mix a poultice. You can now sharpen Semmel's razor to an edge that can split a falling hair. You've even been allowed to stitch a few simple, clean cuts under his watchful eye. One quiet afternoon, after you've successfully set a young boy's dislocated finger, a swift, painful pop that brought immediate relief, Semmel doesn't immediately turn to the next task. Instead, he watches you clean up. You are no longer just sweeping the floor, he states, a note of approval in his voice. Your hands are learning. It is then that he begins to speak of things beyond the daily craft. He tells you about the Gedic, the license, the right to operate a shop in this specific location. This right is controlled by the Guild, the powerful association of barber-surgeons that governs your trade. There are rules, he explains. You cannot just open a shop anywhere. You must be sponsored. Your tools and cleanliness can be inspected. The Guild sets the maximum prices for a shave, for a bleeding, for the extraction of a molar. It's a system designed to prevent charlatans from undercutting honest craftsmen and to maintain a standard, however basic. He then picks up a few of the coins a recent customer paid, jingling them in his palm. A shave is 2 axi. A simple haircut, 3. A tooth extraction. He pauses. That can be 10 or more, depending on the difficulty and the pain endured by the customer. He looks at you meaningfully. The surgical work pays more. Much more. A successful set. Ting of a broken leg can feed a family for a month. It is why we do it. It is why we bear the weight of it. This is the economics of pain and relief, a brutal but honest calculus. The red and white pole is not just a symbol of services rendered, it is a price list, a business license, and a mark of guild protection, all in one. This structured world, with its rules and hierarchies, is a far cry from the chaotic, desperate freedom of the street performer you saw. Here, there is a path, a career. There is a way to build a life, a reputation, and a modest fortune through skill and sanctioned practice. Historians have access to guild ledger books and price lists, but they can only guess at the feeling of a young apprentice realizing that this messy, bloody, and often frightening craft can actually be a livelihood. It grounds the drama of medicine in the mundane reality of rent and bread. Semmel is not just teaching you how to heal, he is teaching you how to make a living from it. The weight of the night's failures is balanced, somewhat, by the solid, practical promise of the guild's coin. Section 15. Seasons have turned outside the shop's single window. The stifling heat of summer has given way to the crisp air of autumn, and the first rains have pattered against the cloth awning. You are no longer the wide-eyed novice who fumbled with the lather brush. Your movements around the shop are assured. You know the weight and balance of every tool in the chest. You can anticipate Semmel's needs before he speaks them, handing him the correct probe or bandage with a simple nod. One evening, after the last customer has left and the pole is brought inside, Semmel does not immediately begin the cleanup. Instead, he gestures for you to sit. He pours 2 small cups of dark, bitter tea and pushes one towards you. You came here knowing nothing, he begins, his voice even more gravelly than usual. You saw the blood. You heard the screams. You learned the weight of a broken bone and the smell of a festering wound. He takes a slow sip of his tea. And you did not run. You stayed. Your hands became steady. He sets his cup down and looks at you, his gaze appraising, but now it holds the warmth of a master for a proficient apprentice. The guild examination is in 2 months' time. You will demonstrate your skill with the razor, your knowledge of the humors, and your ability to set a simple fracture. If you pass, you will receive your gedik, your right to practice. He pauses, letting the weight of this sink in. You could open your own shop. Perhaps not on a street as good as this one, at first. But you could be a master. You have the skill for it. This is the culmination of it all. The endless days of scraping wood, the terrifying moments of holding down a patient, the quiet nights of salve-making, they have all been leading to this threes. Hold. The path from apprentice to journeyman to master is now clear before you, a tangible future woven from thread and steel and the trust of the community. You are no longer just learning a trade, you are being invited to join a lineage, to become one of the pillars of your neighborhood, the man people come to not just for a shave, but for relief from their physical suffering. The red and white pole would be yours to hang. The chest of tools yours to maintain. The successes and failures yours to bear. The thought is as terrifying as it is exhilarating. The gentle hum of the imagined fan is the only sound now, a soft, constant whisper against the silence of your room. The streets of Istanbul, the scent of spices and soap, the sharp, metallic tang of the tools, they all begin to recede, fading like a vivid dream upon waking. The weight of the bone saw, the stickiness of the honey salve, the trusting sigh of a shaved customer, these sensations soften at the edges, blending into the warm, dark comfort of your own space. You've journeyed far, from a nervous newcomer to the threshold of mastery, and the path has been long. Let the images drift now, let the sounds of the market and the shop melt into the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. There is no more to do, no more to learn tonight. Just rest. The story is complete, its echoes lingering softly in the space between wakefulness and sleep, a gentle tide pulling you out into peaceful, dreamless depths. The world of the barber-surgeon has finished its tale for you, leaving behind only a quiet gratitude for the comforts of now, and the gentle, steady approach of sleep.